Hey everybody, this is Mod Squared. I'm starting a YouTube channel. I'm already on X and several other things. I'm filming this first one in my garage. It's literally my garage. I have engines I'm rebuilding over there, junk to be put in the attic because it is the end of October. And I wanted to start by talking in this first video about Charlie Kirk. Now it's been a month. Uh, we've seen a lot. We haven't seen even more. Um, I want to start out by saying I think that I've personally seen every video put out from people from their personal cameras. I've seen the so-called palm gun videos from the back right and from the left front. I've seen the videos of Charlie Kirk's so-called security team and all these strange actions and the lack of blood and the weird uh, walking away of his chief of staff, Mikey McCoy. I've watched the Jimmy Dore show. I've seen McCoy's father, Rob McCoy, the pastor, talking about, well, basically giving us a lot of propaganda about how you shouldn't blame Israel and how his son had Charlie's blood all over him. His son, you watch the video where he was standing when Charlie got shot. He was about 5 to 6 feet back to Charlie's left, fiddling with his phone. You can see the videos. They're on Jimmy Dore. Candace Owen probably has them. Owens. Um, you know, the way I see it is there's only two plausible explanations here. And the video is actually pretty dark because that's how I wanted this first one. I'm not an orator. I've been a shy guy all my life, but this is what I've decided to try to do. I think it's going to give some meaning in my life at this point. It's something I'm passionate about. Um, so they certainly will improve as I get equipment and find ways to get this organized. But the thing I wanted to say is I believe there's only two possibilities here. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. We've come to have this idea about conspiracy theory in general. Um, I think that the saying goes it's only a conspiracy theory until it's proven right, and then the conspiracy is exposed. We all know what conspiracies are. We all know how much we've seen them in our lives, especially if you're in your mid to late 50s, as I am. Um, I remember being brought up with JFK and the craziness around that. I remember feeling so elated when I watched the movie JFK, where the whole movie was basically an exploration of the information, the propaganda, and the reenactment of the shooting and all the things around the shooting. I thought it was just a fabulous film, as many of you probably have. I encourage anybody who's younger who hasn't seen that film to see it because it's education 101 when it comes to conspiracies into American politics and assassination. The movie is excellent. It just walks you through the whole process. Um, as I said, I think there's only really two possibilities here. We've all talked about how now, and I'm shooting this on the cuff. I don't have anything written down, so forgive me for starting and stopping and for seeming a little bit unorganized at this point. Um, the first possibility is that Charlie really did get shot. Um, but the question then becomes by who? I don't have any sympathy for anybody on the left at this point. I used to be a Democrat. Robert F. Kennedy, when I discovered last year that he was in the race, I really looked up everything I could on him, and I listened to what he was saying, and I was going to vote for him. And then when he pulled over to the Trump side, I kind of followed him over. Then I had to do my research on Trump. I had to look up all of my misinformation that I had gotten from media, misinformation that I had thought that I had intelligently collected in my life. I'm not necessarily in far right, far left kind of person. I've always been in the middle. I'm always ready to critique people even when I vote for them. I think that there is an Israel component here. And I hate to get my very first video knocked off of YouTube by talking about the wrong subject, but I am a newbie, and I am going to speak my mind, and we'll see how it goes. I don't have any hatred for Jewish people. I do understand about the influence that AIPAC and Israel in general has on our American political system. It's obvious, everybody knows about it. And it's already known by just about everybody by now, at least on the Republican side, that are interested in Charlie Kirk or were, that he was having some misgivings about the promotion of the Israel propaganda because they were his donors. He was getting a lot of money from them. And obviously, people who give money want something for that money. He was apparently coming to the conclusion that Israel was not the state that everybody believes or that he believed that they were. I watched many, many videos of his over the last year because I had avoided politics like the plague ever since 2000, well, since 9/11. The debacle of 9/11 kind of hit me in the gut so hard. Not just the act, but everything that came after it and all the obvious controlled propaganda that came about because of it. And then invading Iraq. You know, I'm going to be honest again, I don't have a lot of sympathy for Islam. I don't have a lot of sympathy for Israel or for people in the Middle East in general. I'm not hateful. I'm not Islamophobic. I'm not anti-Semitic. But what I see is a region that for thousands of years have never tried to embrace being anything but barbaric. You know, it's hard to choose a side in these kinds of wars that deal with the Middle East. At first, I hated everything I was seeing happen. You know, anti-ICE, all the things on the college campuses, all the young people with this conviction that free Palestine was the big order of the day, was the hill that they chose to climb up and defend. You know, I have learned more and more that some of the things that they said was happening, you know, some of the atrocities, I've come to kind of see that a lot of that may have been true. Not all of it. I was originally of the opinion that Israel does have a right to defend itself, but how much of what's been happening has been defense and how much has been part of a bigger plan to carve out a larger state for Israel. Now, I'm not going to come out and talk about Zionists. I'm not going to come out and talk about Israeli politics. On the face of it, I don't care about that stuff. But as it affects our country and our people, and as it affects the workings of our country through money, influence, media ownership, propaganda. I just saw a commercial on YouTube. It popped up in the commercial, on one of the videos I was watching, and it started talking about how, after the ceasefire, after Trump's ceasefire between Israel and Hamas or Palestine, or however you want to word that, it said, well, after the ceasefire, Hamas is now murdering people again, something to that effect. And I looked down below to see. I always try to see who's sponsoring these things. And if you trace a lot of these things back, not necessarily that one, but if you trace a lot of these things back, you know where it leads. There's so much propaganda in our country from foreign countries. I think we're every day, month, and year starting to understand that more. Like I said, I avoided politics since the George Bush, Dick Cheney era because I was so fabulously disgusted by it. It's hard on your psyche to see something like that, to see such a psyop played out, to see such a grand bunch of mind fucking going on. And it's even worse when you hang around people or you know people and you talk to people and you see that they've eaten it up with a full knife, fork, spoon. It's just like a 7-course meal to them. They eat up everything that they're told. They don't have any subtlety in their thinking. They don't have any kind of open-mindedness. They don't have the kind of experience in life that has told them that most of what's true is hidden underneath language. I've spent my life looking at people and watching their body language, listening to what they say, listen to what they say the next day, see if it's the same as they said the day before, catching them in lies, following their logic or trying to, disproving their logic. I've gotten into a lot of arguments with a lot of people that I love and family members that, extended family members that I respect and grew up with, but I'm just one of those people, as many of you are, that seemingly absorbs conversations, has a memory for that. Somebody says something a month down the road, and I say, whoa, wait a minute. In June, you said this, because it resonates. It's not like I'm taking notes. It's not like I don't have an eidetic memory. It's just that when I hear something that is not resonant, it ding, it's like a bell. It just, it's like recall just says boom, That's just me. I think it's probably a lot of you out there too that has this. It's not a super special ability. It's just you're born with certain psychological traits. Some things bug you. Some things that bug you may not bug other people. The thing that bugs me is inconsistencies in speech, in patterns of action, in stories, in truth, in talking to people. When I hear somebody say something and then later on they say something else, I can't help but call it out. And it's gotten me in a lot of arguments, but, I'm going to go off on some tangents here because, like I said, I'm not an orator and I'm new and I don't have this written out. But let's back it up a little bit. The way I see it, there's two possibilities. One of them is going to seem a little more strange, and I'm not putting these things out as what is happening. But when you cut through all of what the FBI is saying, and I voted for Trump, okay? I was happy and elated when he got his whole cast of characters together, especially since I was going to vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Even though I would have been, quote unquote, throwing away my vote, I was voting with my conscience. I was voting to say, look, maybe they can get 5% and then make it easier for them to start a third party. I didn't know if I really wanted a third party, but you know, I was voting for who I thought had the best patriotic desire inside of them to bring forth the truth. I was hearing what he was saying about Ukraine. I was hearing what he was saying about Israel. I was hearing what he said. The man is a historic boon. I mean, if you listen to him, he knows his shit on a lot of different topics. He's incredibly smart. So I was ready to vote for him. I followed him over to the Trump side. But I come to conclusions based on what I think is intelligence, meaning intelligence that's inside the human being, not political, intelligence from the intelligence agencies, although that can play a part like it does with everyone. I think that, number one, if Charlie was killed, and I say if for a reason, I don't believe that it went down in the way that Kash Patel and the FBI is saying it. And that's pissing me off because I also was pulling for Kash Patel. Obviously, there are a lot of reasons why someone would lie, why somebody would hide the truth, would hide parts of the truth. I've watched several videos, Jimmy Dore being one. There's been a couple others who have talked about the Google search. I don't know the proper, I'll have to edit some of this later. When you go back and look at the history of the Google searches, who searched what and when and from what area. If you watched any of the Jimmy Dore commentary on Charlie Kirk, you'll see, and he's not my only source, it's just what I'm bringing up now. This is my first video. I'm going to grab what's in my immediate memory. He was bringing up the fact that other people had done research on the fact that many of the people involved in Charlie Kirk's shooting were looked up on Google days or weeks or even months before. Some of the people around him that worked on the Kirk campaign, or the Kirk, the structure and TP. They Googled the doctors at the hospital that he was taken to. They Googled the hospital itself. They Googled many other things that were associated with this whole thing, even the supposed shooter. And most of these, if not all of them, were coming from Washington, D.C. and from Israel. Now, I'm not giving you any scoop here. If you haven't seen this, go to Jimmy Dore. You look up Charlie Kirk's assassination. It isn't what you think, or any type of similar search, and it'll come up, unless it's been taken down. Because, quite frankly, since Kirk was shot, if he was, I've watched every video that came out. I've watched the palm gun video of the guy, raising his hand up and squeezing something in his hand and then putting his hand back down. I've watched the guy to the right of Charlie with his arms folded and something underneath his arm, and possibly something. Maybe it's a rolled up magazine. Maybe it's something in it. I've seen the video where the guy says the bullet came from the right rear. The one I think is the most plausible, and here's the point before I say that, even Jimmy Dore goes to the point of showing that a lot of these things have been scrubbed. Since the people have made the videos, since they've made YouTube videos or whatever format they're on, a lot of these things have been scrubbed. They've been taken off. They've been erased. Now, I know this video is going to be a bit scattered, but back to Kash Patel. I started off saying that I really voted for him. I was rooting for him. I was rooting for Trump's that's where I got off on a tangent, for his whole list of his whole cabinet. But this kind of thing, this kind of act, all the suspicious activity from the FBI has gotten me aggravated, has gotten me frustrated, has gotten me back to 9/11 when I love my country. One of the most stressful things in any human being's life, to be honest, is to see corruption and to see non-transparency, especially around assassinations, especially around huge events like 9/11, like going into Iraq with faulty evidence, faulty propaganda. Propaganda in general. Propaganda is one of my pet peeves that I talk about a lot. Um, we can go into the Smith-Mundt Act. I think I'm saying it wrong. Again, that Obama tweaked during his term so that Americans made it legal to propagandize Americans, which the original act said that you were not allowed to do that. Some of this stuff, a lot of you are already going to know. It's going to be rehashed, but I'm doing the best that I can with my first video here. So what I'm trying to say is, and again, I used to watch Dan Bongino when he had his podcast. I used to see that man get red in the face. I used to see his veins popping out from anger because of his disgust with the lies of the FBI, what was going on in the CIA, with the lies of politicians. I seen his passion. I seen his blood boil. I seen his face and his neck. Everything got red. You don't fake that. And to see him and Kash Patel set up in that one video where they're both sitting on the chairs, and they're being interviewed, and they just kind of robotically said, "No, we've looked into it, and Epstein killed himself." Now I know I'm venturing over into the Epstein area here, but that what I'm trying to say is there's so much happening that is turning all of my hope and faith into aggravation. It's like we got something special going on here. Now it's all become Biden-esque, at least some of it. I'm not losing hope. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm behind Trump. I'm behind what's going on. I think it's leading in a positive direction. It's just that, I'm a realist, but at the same time, I want to win in all of these categories. And in a way, we are winning. But this hiccup, this thing about Charlie Kirk has introduced a huge hiccup in the whole works. So when I say if Charlie got shot, what I'm trying to say is that if he died, and if he was hit from that far away with a 30-06, you'd probably just see a black hole appear in his neck, and you would see a lot of blood coming out the back. It would have probably splattered all over the back of the stage, all over that nice blue and white plastic or drapery or whatever it was back there. I mean, I'm not a hunter. I've never shot anyone. But let's be realistic. To see him jerk and then see some blood trickle down the front like that and nothing coming out the back, it's just unbelievable. The guy, I'm actually relying on a lot of you having seen the videos that I'm talking about, because maybe in later videos we'll get into more detail, because a lot of these things have been taken off of YouTube, which you would expect, but I've actually gotten many of them fully recorded on my phone. I just held my phone up and focused on the television and played the video and recorded it on my phone. Now, I've got some of that still. I don't know where else we'll find it except on our own phones, because all the people that were there and recorded these things, who knows how many of them have them still recorded. I know some of the people that posted alternate theories about Charlie Kirk shooting. They can't be found on their videos anymore. Under the guise of, national security and all this crap that they always talk about. But as far as the palm gun, the so-called palm gun guy, I see that as the crux of the whole thing. I mean, the guy's standing there and he's reaches something up, squeezes, you hear it, tucks away under his shirt. They've even got it on the video, little silver thing, little silver blur of like a bullet coming out. And it's on video. Now, where we're going to find it now, who knows? If you've seen it before, if you've already seen it, then you know what I'm talking about. If we'll ever be able to see it again, I don't know. I have part of it on my phone. I have the crappier version, the short version, because when I first saw the long form version, I saved it so that I could go back and see it again. I saved it on my, YouTube channel. But again, if they take it off, then you've saved nothing, I've seen the videos talking about his that square thing that was kind of on his lapel there. I guess it was a part of his intercom, his headset, part of his microphone. We've seen his shirt puff out during when the shot rings out. There's people saying that this thing shot a bullet up into him. There are people who think that, number two, that he is not dead. I'm saying this is people who think this. I try to be rational, but rationally, we have a witness protection program for a rational reason. There is a lot of theories out there that Charlie Kirk, because he was becoming antagonistic or non-agreeable with the Israel pact, and receiving a lot of backlash and a lot of threats because of that. There's people who think that this whole thing is an elaborate setup, and that all these people who are recorded doing strange, weird things that go against what would necessarily happen to normal people in the middle of an assassination, and they're acting in ways that have nothing to do with how a normal human would act, like Mikey McCoy, like some of the others who were standing behind and beside Charlie Kirk. They're even, Jimmy Dore even says that there's a video out there that shows the guy that was asking Charlie the last question he was about to answer before he got shot. They said there's a video of him practicing his lines and then actually practicing his surprise moment, like, oh, in other words, what they're trying to say is he was practicing to react when Charlie Kirk got shot. And in order to practice that, he had to have known it was going to happen. Now, the rationale against conspiracies has always been this. Nobody believes that you can get so many people involved in a conspiracy, because when you get a group of people together to try to agree on something, there's always somebody that spills the beans. There's always somebody who screws it up. There's always somebody who gets caught and exposes the whole thing. They think that a conspiracy does not happen that often because it relies on a larger number of people to behave perfectly, or else the whole house of cards falls down. I would agree with that somewhat. But just like any event in history, you only start learning the truth after years, decades, or many decades. People come out and say, yeah, I was paid this, I was threatened that, I was made to sign a non-disclosure, I was this, that. To put together a conspiracy isn't as hard as people like to think that it is. And the ones who like to think that most are the ones who for political reasons or for ideological reasons, they don't want to believe that these things happen. Now, I'm not saying it does. We'll probably never know, which is supremely frustrating. Um, I don't have anything against the guy that they're trying to put in prison for shooting Charlie Kirk. I'm not big on the woke ideology. I'm not big on any of that. I've been more hostile to it over the last year and a half when I've actually pulled my head out of the sand after my self imposed embargo of everything political over, well, since 2001 or so. So for, 22, 23 years, I even avoided the news. It's not to say that I didn't know what was going on just through osmosis, just being alive and hearing people talk and catching snippets here and there, but I certainly didn't go out and look for what was happening. I was frustrated. After 9/11, it's a strange feeling to think that your country is on the downslope and you're watching it die. And that's the feeling that I had for 20 years, ever since 9/11. And there were other things in the interim, the bailout of the banks, all these other things. It was just, by then it was just another brick in the wall, kind of thing. But, lately there's some videos that are coming out, and there's some implications of some kind of friction between Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel, and possibly Tulsi Gabbard and Trump. Now, I don't know what the Trump situation is on this. I kind of veer away from it because I'm trying to be as positive as possible. There's some funny things going on there too, but I'm not, what? So much good is happening. I'm not making this video in order to try to criticize the Trump administration. Now, if it happens, let's just do a hypothetical. If it happens that Charlie Kirk did not get shot, and this was an elaborate stage play, and he's somewhere enjoying his wife and his kids off somewhere, then I can understand why the ham-handed, sophomoric attempts to wipe away all the information and to, well, I just heard today somebody in the, I think it was under the DNI, one of Tulsi Gabbard's lieutenants was investigating these things on his own, the possibilities of the Kirk assassination on his own, and there was some friction with Kash Patel, who said that you need to trust us, we're doing our job, you shouldn't be looking into it. Well, we've all heard all the comments about how easy it is to suppress. Again, I'm not going to remember everything that I want to remember. It goes something like, nobody uses this much energy to suppress the truth. Meaning, when you see this much effort, it can only be to suppress a lie. Because the truth, nobody works to suppress. You get what I'm pointing. I feel like George Bush here. Anyway, if I learn how to edit, I will fix this later. But you get my point. There's a lot of effort being put out to, already a month in, to push back against things, to take videos down, to scrub Google searches. Why do that? The whole thing smacks of cover-up. And I don't like to think it. I don't want to think it. I don't want it to be true. A lot of people talking about how Kash Patel made a statement. He said, his kind of goodbye to Charlie speech when he said, goodbye, brother, I'll see you in Valhalla. And then, you've probably already heard all the stuff about how there's this island, a real island. I believe they said it was in the Pacific. I don't remember. But they showed a sign on there that, anyway, the gist of it is that that's one of the locations for people who are in the witness protection program. I know it's far-fetched. Even in my mind, it's far-fetched. But the actions of some of these people, just like, Mikey McCoy walking away nonchalantly, it's like boom, and he just turns around without really jumping, turns around, goes behind the stage with his phone to his ear, casually walks away. You see him later over by the car park against a fence. This is supposed to be one of his good friends, his chief of staff, somebody he's known for years. And, Charlie gets shot, and the first thing he does is casually does a 180 with not altering his stride, not seeming to be, at all surprised by what's going on. He didn't rush over to help. He didn't crane his neck to look and see what was going on. He just turned around and went, la da da. Just walked away casually, like he expected it to happen. On and on and on. These Google searches. Everybody was looking into everybody that we now know as in the periphery of this whole event. People were Googling these people, surgeons, hospitals, all the players. People were Googling them before the event. Nowhere else in the world but in Israel and in Washington, D.C. So what's the Washington, D.C., Israel connection to all these Google searches of all these people and all these places? They even Google searched the address of, beforehand, the address of the house where the gun was found. Why would anybody do that? The point I'm trying to make is, if you've got the kind of brain that many of us have, you cannot reconcile all of these things into or under the umbrella of coincidence. The odds against it are astronomically high, to the point of impossibility. How do you explain the fact that all of these things were being looked at before the event? How would you know to look at an address where later a gun would be found that's used in an assassination that hasn't happened yet? The whole thing stinks. I only came up with the idea to do this video on this topic because as I was walking out to my garage, I've been putting off doing my first video for months now. And I was walking out here and I was thinking, what am I going to talk about? This is totally unplanned. It's just a spur of the moment thing. I just had this idea that, I've been thinking about things. The best thing to do when you're a procrastinator, as I sometimes can be, is just to go and do something. Just shoot something. This may never air. This may be my first video, or I may just look at it and say it's so shitty I'm just going to have to try another one. Maybe I'm portraying myself in the way that I don't want to portray myself. It could be anything. I may never post it on YouTube. But the point is, if you're like me, you're supremely frustrated by this. I didn't expect it to happen. We've already seen what happened to Donald Trump. A lot of the crap that was around that was suspicious. We all moved on so quick from it. Everybody moved on so quick from it. We still don't have answers. So, the way that I'm going to be a bit maudlin here. I'm going to be emotional without actually being emotional, but I'm going to say my feelings here about 9/11 specifically and why this reminds me of it emotionally. Like I said before, when 9/11 happened, something happened to my brain. It wasn't the event. The event was traumatizing enough. It was the months after. It was the year after. It was all the answers that we were given. It was all the excuses that we were given. It was all about nobody ever seen an airplane. I just seen another video that popped up that has been suppressed for years about a newscaster that was at the Pentagon, what, an hour or two after the plane was supposed to have hit it, and there was no plane there. This is not anything that's just come out. I mean, all this stuff was talked about after the event all those years ago. The small building, what do they call it, Building 7 or something like that, coming down. All these Middle Eastern men that were sitting, several blocks away from the Twin Towers, Israeli men, laughing and shouting and having a good old time. And, the scuttlebutt is that they were later identified as Mossad, as Israeli intelligence, and set free, of course. I mean, I don't like to delve into conspiracy theory, but I also don't like the term conspiracy theory. I have other interests. I'm actually a mechanic. I've been a mechanic most of my life, an auto mechanic. And but I'm interested in things like geology. I'm interested in a lot of scientifically minded things, and there's conspiracies in science. I watch Randall Carlson. I'm a fan of Graham Hancock, not because they're conspiracy theorists or they're crazy, but because the evidence they present is interesting. Everyone who has a novel idea or who has something to say that's not going to fit in with the accepted party line is going to be labeled something, and it's usually a conspiracy theorist. The point that I'm trying to make, if there is one grand point here, is that we'll never get anybody to understand the traumatizing of a person when they watch something grand, negatively grand, happen to their country, and then they get the propagandized mindfuck afterwards. We never get any answers. JFK, we don't have the answers to that either. His brother, John Lennon, all these assassinations. In fact, on the Jimmy Dore show, to go back to that for a second, they were talking about how a lot of these shootings, especially the most recent ones, all had Google searches about the people and the events surrounding them days, weeks, or months beforehand. So what's that say about conspiracy theory? In my mind, it says that conspiracy theory, the term, is just a convenient way to, color and tint and propagandize something that is a real conspiracy. They have all these ways to sidetrack everything, and they sure as hell use them. Now, I want the Trump administration to succeed. I want everybody in the cabinet to succeed. But I'm got to say that this really comes down to Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. I'm just amazingly aggravated with these two. Especially since I don't know that much about Kash Patel. I'm going to be honest with you. Dan Bongino, I used to watch his videos. And as I said before, I used to watch his vein pop out on his head. He would get so damn pissed off. And now where's that passion? I guess if you're on the inside, your passion drains away. If you're on the inside, then all of a sudden, you're part of the club, so you can join in the lie instead of being offended to the point of anger by the lie. Is that how the big change works? You're part of the in crowd. Well, now all the shit that you used to hate has become okay. In fact, you've become part of that shit. The hypocrisy is what gets me. How easily a person can change. I'm sure these guys got a lot on their plate. I'm sure there's a lot going on. Hell, we've got 12, 15, 20 years of bullshit to unravel. The country's been going to hell. You know, we're fighting against all this DEI. We're fighting against every damn Democratic governor and mayor across the country, just trying to turn this into, you know, the new communist country in the world. And that's another thing for a future video. People these days do not know anything about communism. They don't know how it starts. They don't know how it infiltrates. They don't know that, they don't realize that everything that's happening has been happening under Obama and Biden, step by step by step, marches to the beat of the typical infiltration of Marxism in a country that previously did not have it. The takeover of media, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. It's communism 101. So that's for another video. But what I'm trying to say is, I hope Charlie's still alive. I don't know. I don't know how much of a percentage I can give you that makes me think that that's true. 80%, 50%, 20%. That probably changes depending on what I'm watching and how much, what pops up as evidence as the days go on. But I do know this. There's so many actors that are acting so strangely, and there's such a pushback towards anybody who's even asking questions, that no matter what has happened, it certainly as hell is not what we've been told that it's happening. Like I said, if this kid goes to prison for doing this, I mean, I'm not going to do anything to try to save another woke, transgender involved, confused youth, because quite frankly, I've been aggravated by them. All the videos I've seen, the anti-ICE stuff, all the things that's been going on in corporations, been going around the country. They've had their way for way too long, and that's what part of the problem is in this country. But at the same time, if he goes to jail, and in every assassination there's always a patsy, right? If he does go to jail, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But the point being, if he does, and then the case closed, and then nobody's allowed to talk about anything anymore, then it's just going to be another mindfuck like JFK and like all the others. So I'm pissed off. Today is the day when, yesterday, Trump met with China over in South Korea to help to try to finalize the trade deal. So that gives you the idea of when this was made. And, I'm hoping some of the prices come down in this country. You can't even buy beef. I mean, we're not rich. If I was rich, I wouldn't be doing this in my damn garage. But I do have something to say. I hope it is worth something. I hope there are other people who think the same way. Be happy to hear from you. This is Mod Squared, Modern Moderate. That's why I call it Mod Squared. I posted a lot on X, but I don't, I'm at the base level. My stuff doesn't get out. I'm hoping to try to change that and to make more of these and to really give my opinion on things from the point of view of somebody who, like I said, a lot of you who are able to piece puzzle pieces together in a way that is logical and wade through a lot of the propaganda bullshit. So I hope everybody's doing good. I got to put some pistons in a 5.3. It's getting cold in here. A couple days before Halloween. So, again, forgive my newbie status. Forgive my tangents. And these things can only get better. So, have a good evening. Think positive. It may not be a positive video, but damn it, I'm going to try to think positive anyway. I hope you do the same.